Hi guys, welcome to Dreamforce. Thank you for coming to the first session. So today we're going to take you through an introduction to Lightning components. My name's Andrew Patterson. I work for Salesforce, obviously. Been here just under 2 years. I work in the platform team. And this is my colleague Jan van der Broek from Belgium. We're just going to work through this presentation today. I'll do some talking. Jan will do a demonstration. And maybe if you think you're going to ask a question, can you just put your hand up now? If you think there's some stuff you're going to want to ask? No? Okay. No one's got questions, so we'll try and leave some time for questions at the end because I just talked to a few of you beforehand, and obviously I think most people are probably going to be, we're on Classic, we want to go Lightning, what's this Lightning component stuff about? Okay, so standard, you will see this lots of times over the next week. Forward-looking statement, when considering future developments, always base your purchasing decisions on what's available, not on maybe what we show here.
Oh.
Okay, cool. And that's the first technical hitch of the day, so that's a good start. Yep. Okay, well, while we're waiting for that to be fixed, just a quick hands up. So who's on Classic at the moment? Okay, and who's actually implemented Lightning? Yeah, okay, there's got a few guys and girls over there, so that's good. So I think it's been an interesting journey over the last year or so with Lightning. I think we're now at that point where it really is kind of GA, and that a lot of customers are being able to move across. Okay.
No worries.
And who's actually looked at trailheads for Lightning? Okay, yeah, so not so many. So I think one of the big things from today, I hope you're going to learn, is Trailhead has really become our way of learning things on the platform and how to do things with Salesforce. So our call to action at the end is go and look at Trailhead. As you see everywhere, it says Trailhead. This is really the best way of learning something. So what we'll take you through today, Jan will do a demo. Exactly what he will show you in the demo is there in a guided learning path on how to do things. So definitely that's the one takeaway from this session is trailheads. Okay, cool. So the agenda, so what we focus on. So we're just going to try and get through this a bit quicker than planned because we've lost 2.5 minutes already. So we're going to go through what's Lightning, what are Lightning components, how they're made up, give you a couple of examples of how they're used, which obviously a few are on Lightning already, so you know that. And then Jan will do the demonstration. Okay, so the first question is what's Lightning? For Salesforce, Lightning is a lot of things. There's product features that are in the tool set. So we've got Lightning Experience, which is the UI. We've got the App Builder tool. We've got the Process Builder tool. So those are product features that are branded Lightning. We then got the kind of the dev side of things, which is Lightning Component Framework and Lightning Design System. So the framework that manages the Lightning components talking to each other, and then the kind of UI design. And then we've got lots of marketing and branding where everything seems to get branded Lightning something or other. So we've got Lightning Service, Sales Cloud Lightning. So for this session today, really what we're focusing on is the development view. So think of it as Lightning Experience for your users will be made up of those Lightning component frameworks and the UI styling, so the Salesforce Lightning Design System. And then, so obviously the main part of the session, what are Lightning components? So Lightning components is an attempt to, there's a lot of good stuff you could do with Visualforce, but it was an old kind of style of kind of web application. So it was very page-centric, so each time you did something, you had to reload the page. And Lightning components is really trying to move you away from that single page approach to having bits on the page which load and able to talk to each other independently so that you get a much faster UI. So when someone clicks a button and it updates something, that part of the UI can reload rather than the whole page. It's one of the bigger issues is it's a move towards what's more kind of full development rather than the click and config stuff of the past. Apex is, you can do a lot of stuff with Visualforce quite easily with the tags, which now in Lightning you have to do some coding. So it's a bit more towards supporting developers being able to do stuff on the platform. It's supporting a lot of new standards as well, so that's good. You can start doing a lot more dynamic things and implementing new functionality. And then out of the box. So the key thing is out of the box, we give you some standard components. So when you go and use Sales Cloud or Service Cloud, those components that are in there, they're available for you to then build your own apps using. You can create your own custom components, which is what we'll take you through today. And you can also download from the App Exchange. So we're still supporting that model, but hopefully in a way that you can download something from the App Exchange, implement that component, and then in the future, if you want to change it, it's not going to be such a big impact as maybe when you're using Visualforce. Okay, so Visualforce or Lightning components. You can still use Visualforce. Okay, so we recommend use Lightning components if you basically want to customize the UI. So if you've gone to Lightning, so let's assume you've somehow got from Classic to Lightning, you've done your implementation, and then basically we'd say use Lightning components if you want to modify that UI. It's going. And also, if you want to kind of build mini apps, or if you want to, there's a new feature in Lightning components or in the Lightning design. There's now a utility bar that can sit along the bottom of the screen. And so you can actually put little mini apps that pop up and work in the context of where you are, or quick actions. So in the past, a lot of people have done JavaScript buttons, and quick actions and with Lightning components are now the new way that you can re-implement that functionality. And so that's where Lightning kind of comes in, where you can start using this with Visualforce. But really, it's about building a reusable, responsive application. So being able to build an application that works a bit faster, is easy to maintain and modify, and so on. You can still carry on using Visualforce, so if that you're a heavy Classic user, and it's going to be a lot of effort to migrate that stuff. One of the approaches we'd recommend there is try and start using the Salesforce Lightning design system. So at the end of this presentation, there's a link to some workshops, Lightning workshops, and there's some really good guides there on, okay, we're on Classic, we want to go to Lightning, what can we do? So there's some stuff there around how to style Visualforce pages to look like Lightning, how to start migrating your code, and then how to start building Lightning components. So the recommended approach is going to be, Lightning first if you can, and then migrate that old code over as and when you can do it. And obviously, that's going to depend on your users and where that makes sense. So what is a Lightning component? It's not as complicated as it first looks, and I'm going to be honest. So I went through this about a year and a half ago when Lightning first came out, trying to go through the trailheads, understanding how the framework's built. And it was kind of confusing to understand at the time because the documentation was a bit new and was missing some gaps. It had some gaps, I wasn't missing them. Now the trailheads are very good, so it's very easy to kind of build up a Lightning component. And really, it's not much different to what you used to do with Visualforce. The key thing is what we've introduced is the green box you see here, which is the JavaScript controller. So now you've got your view page, which is built using Aura and some other tags. That will then call through to this JavaScript controller, which then can call through to your Apex controller. So really not much of a big change to what you currently do with Visualforce, but it starts giving you a bit of flexibility around what happens there, because you've got this extra JavaScript controller in the middle, which then allows you to kind of do other things and so on. There is also a second approach. So there's a new thing called Lightning Data Services, which is GA. And you can actually get rid of that need for a controller. So if you're writing code which is just updating the single record, then you can actually use Lightning Data Services to just, as it shows there with the tag, you can just embed that in the page and use JavaScript to update that object and just hit save without having to go back to Apex. So that kind of frees you up again with some functionality without having to build all these layers and so on. But it's not very complicated. It's basically got a view, which Jan will show you in a minute. You've got a view, you've got the controller, you've got Apex. So not much of a change, but gives you a lot of flexibility. And when we say flexibility, a few of you are obviously on Lightning already, but it's basically this approach you see here of where suddenly pages become these components that sit on, the page is made up of these different components. So here we're seeing with Lightning App Builder, we've got a billing case list. So we've got a list of cases from the standard controller on the standard components on the left. So we dragged in the list view, we dragged in a report view and another report view, and you just point to these, and this is really what Lightning's about. Whereas in Visualforce, you'd have to write that yourself. With Lightning components, you can build these discrete, reusable parts and then embed them in the page. So that's an app page example. Sorry. So the other key difference there is you can now build app pages, you can have record pages, and you can kind of have these different styles of pages as well. So kind of supporting that ability to embed what's like a little mini app in a page rather than it being object specific. This example here is from the Dreamhouse demo app. That's the URL is in the top of the screen. This is a very good way of learning Lightning and a lot of the new features in Salesforce that have come about in the last 2 years. So this is kind of a mock application for real estate brokers, but this will actually take you through how to build a lot of this stuff. There's guided paths there, there's dev guides, and so on. Okay, and so with Lightning components, the other big change is about the eventing model. So now that we've got these individual components on the page, there's actually a way for them to talk to each other. So when, in this example here, so if I click on this, click on the Heart of Harvard square, if I click on that link, on the right-hand side, we'll see that the other components have updated because they're listening to that event in the code and they know to change. So what we see is a change from the summary and the days to go and the map, it's updated. And you don't have to do much coding for that because it's a disconnected, loosely jointed, loosely coupled communication model, so you can build a component that then gets reused. And if we see here, for example, those components on the right, if I go back to the previous page, they're actually the same components that are sat in the record page here, but in a different context. And that's where you can build components that are reused elsewhere. Okay. And do feel free to jump out with any, raise your hand if you've got a question, if anything you want to ask. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is try and give Jan some time to do his demo, because it can take a while. So I'm going to hand over to Jan to take you through how to build a component.
Thank you, Andrew. So what we're building today is a quick use case. So Maya is the service desk manager for her company, and she wants to focus her team on reducing the number of open cases. They're having a bit of an issue where there's too many concurrent cases open, and she wants her team to focus on a select few, close those down, and move on. So first step in that is to give visibility to her team. She wants everybody to, at any time, know, okay, we have X amount of cases open, and focus them on how to drive that down. So we're going to build a quick component to just get the number of open cases, show that on the home page, and that'll help the team in focusing. So we'll start in the developer console. It's our programmatic IDE right inside Salesforce, and we'll start with creating the Apex class that Andrew mentioned to get the number of open cases from the database. So she writes a quick function, quick method here that it's get the case count. All it does, it's doing a query to count the number of cases that are not closed. And to enable that now in Lightning Experience from Lightning Components, to call that from JavaScript, all she needs to do is annotate it with @aura enabled, and it can be called from JavaScript. So let's save that. So that's done. So now the Lightning component can communicate with the server. So let's now create our component proper. Here we have an empty component, and I'm going to slightly cheat and do a bit of copy pasting. So what we have here is now we've enabled this component to be shown in any page. She can show it on all the record home pages. She can show it in communities. She can show it on the home page. Anywhere in the console, she can just drag and drop, as we'll do a bit later. Secondly, what we've done is we've linked the Lightning component with the Apex controller that we just created. So that's part number one. Secondly, is that we need a variable to store the number of records. So it's all going to be dynamic, so we need to store variables. And that we can do with the pre-configured Aura attribute tag, which has number of records, type integer, because there's hopefully no fractional cases, and we're going to default it to 0. So now we have that. Then we'll do the displaying part. So what we use here is one of the Lightning base components. So we don't have to do everything from scratch. We can build on what Salesforce build on components that are developed internally. So it's very flexible, and you can extend and use the base components to create the UI like it would be native in Salesforce. So here we're using a card, which is a title and some text. We're going to set the title to a number of open cases. We're going to put it in the middle and in big bold letters, so large heading, we're going to dynamically put the variable that we created earlier. This numRecords variable, we're going to refer to it here. And now we have, in our Lightning card, we can show the number of cases. But of course, now this is just static and does nothing. There's no connection to the Lightning, to the Apex controller. All it will do is display the default 0 variable in a Lightning card. So what we'll do is we'll add a handler. So the moment we initialize the component, the moment that the component is launched, we're going to call the doInit JavaScript function in our controller, in our JavaScript controller. So let's save this one. And now in our JavaScript controller, here on the right, you see all the component, all the little building blocks of our component itself. So you have the main UI that we have here. You have the controller, but you also have some helper functions. You can apply some unique styling to your component. So this is a very simple one. So we'll just do the JavaScript controller. And with a few lines of JavaScript, where we're going to refer to the Apex method that we created a moment ago, we're going to set what we need to do when the action returns, because as in true JavaScript fashion, this is all asynchronous. So it's not waiting to render the page till everything is loaded. It renders the components, does the callouts asynchronously, and when they return, something needs to happen, which is our callback, which is what we'll do here. So when we get our callback, we're going to, the response, the number of cases, we're going to assign that to the variable number of records, and then we're going to fire that action. So now we have our component done. So we have the styling, the display in our real component. We have our JavaScript controller that hooks the components to the Apex class, and we have our Apex class that actually does the query. So now we can go to our homepage. Here is our Salesforce Lightning homepage. Right from here, we can edit this page. And the case viewer component that we just created, we're going to drag that to the top right above Einstein. And now we already get a preview of what our component will look like. And this is not some statically generated thing. This is already fetching the number of cases and showing it here. So we're going to save that. Go back. And there we have it. We have a very easy, very quick component to just give some key information, some custom things that you want to do, put them right on the screen, right at the fingertips of your users. OK. Yeah. So did that make sense? And do we have any questions on that? This is, of course, a very, very easy Lightning component without any events. At the moment that you have multiple events, maybe you want to make a live thing where the moment that a case is created, we're going to update that component so that it's a real live view. But as is now, very static, very easy, but built in about 5 minutes. So, yep. Question here? In the assistant? Yeah. Yeah, you can put it in the console. You can put it anywhere. So even in communities, everything is now Lightning component focused, and it's drag and drop there. OK. So, all right. Yeah. So we'll round that off. So I want to give you some additional resources. We have a great Lightning cheat sheet. If you want to know the real basics, that's a great resource to go through. Of course, if you want to know everything there is to know about Lightning components, there's the developer guide. Very, very handy. But the most important one, I think, to get really interactive with it, check, create it in your own org, try it out, use Trailhead, the whole Trailhead system to start building Lightning components, get a quick view of it, and really in a very fun, easy way, build your first Lightning components. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there's any questions, we'll be here.